So Kanye West seems to be continuing his war on vowels with this week's release of the YEEZY Insulated Boot. I don't think it would hurt to spell out insulated boot, but hey, that's just me. What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler, and today I'm reviewing the recently released YEEZY Insulated Boot. You know what, he might not just hate vowels, he might also hate like normal shoes. This shoe is one of the wildest looking boots I've ever seen. It's almost like from another planet. In fact, it looks like you wear this to fly to another planet. So the Adidas YEEZY Insulated Boot released last weekend, November 5th, 2021, for a retail price of $340, which is a lot of money for something that looks like this. And unfortunately, I didn't hit on any releases, so instead, I decided to pay resale on GOAT in the amount of around $550. So if you guys could hit that like button and that subscribe button if you haven't yet, just to make me feel like this was somewhat worth it. Before I actually dive into this video though, I want to show you the box that these shoes came in. And I'm not talking about the shoe box that these shoes came in, which yes, we will look at in a second, but the box that this shoe box came in. So apparently GOAT didn't have any boxes big enough for the YEEZY Insulated Boot box, so instead they sent me a box pretty much the size of the studio. I could barely fit this through the door, I'm not even kidding. Okay. It's in the shot, isn't it? That's how big it is. Even when you throw it across the room, it's still in the shot. It's ridiculous. Inside that car-sized box, we actually had a much smaller box, which if you're familiar with the YEEZY 750s at all, is pretty much the exact same size as that box. The YEEZY Insulated Boot box kind of looks like a square from the top, comes with your natural cardboard, and has YEEZY Insulated Boot printed on the top. It is also a slide box like most other pairs of Yeezys, so you can slide it on this side, that. And then on this side of the box it says YEEZY Insulated Boot, made by Adidas. And then on the other side you've got the size tag. Now as you can tell, I went with the size 9, which is my true size, and the official colorway of this shoe is khaki, khaki, khaki. Now as I'll tell you guys later on in the video, going with your true size is a huge mistake and you should never do that, and that's another reason why you should please hit that like button, because I basically wasted $550. But with both boxes out of the way, let's take a look at the boot itself. Now this shoe was first debuted, I believe, in March or the beginning of the year 2020 during YEEZY Season 8. This is a shoe that we've known about for a long time, but we never really knew when it was going to release. And of course, as Kanye does, he kind of just dropped it out of nowhere, letting us know like 3 or 4 days before the shoe actually dropped. Now, I've been wearing this pair of shoes, or I guess boots, around all day, and I have a lot of thoughts on this shoe. And my opinion on this shoe kind of goes in two different directions. On one end, I really like the shoe, or at least the concept of the shoe, and on the other end, I absolutely hate this shoe and never want to put it back on my feet. But before we dive into the complex mess that is the YEEZY Insulated Boot, let's first take a look at the materials that make up this pair of boots. So the entire upper of this boot comes in this khaki colored canvas material. Now it doesn't feel exactly like canvas, it's a much softer material. It's definitely some kind of fabric, but the texture of it sort of feels like canvas, so that's sort of what I'm comparing it to. As you can see, this boot features these stitched lines throughout the shoe itself, which kind of give it this sort of puffer coat look, which I'm actually kind of into. It sort of segments out the padding in this shoe and kind of gives it these panels of puff, which I honestly kind of like the look of. Something else I kind of dig about this shoe is the fact that these lines sort of have this nice curve to them. They're not just these straight lines that kind of just run across the sneaker itself. They kind of have this almost like rainbow formation to them, which make the shoe a little bit more interesting. Now as for the actual thickness of the upper of the boot, it does feel similar to like a this is a weird example, but like a Uniqlo like puffer jacket. It's not thick like a North Face puffer jacket, but it's definitely got some puff to it. I'd say the thickness of each side is sort of a 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch in puff thickness. As you probably would have expected, the material is actually coated in a water-resistant coating, so it does repel water. It's not waterproof, but it does repel water pretty well. And obviously, like the name of the shoe would suggest, this boot is very warm. It's a very well-insulated boot. Now, getting into the shoe is relatively easy. You've got this Velcro closure on the lateral side, which of course you can just kind of wear closed or open, however you want to wear it. The more I look at this shoe, the more it makes me think that this is sort of like Kanye's next iteration of the 750. It's not a 750 by any stretch of the imagination, but there are definitely some design elements that were taken from the 750s. Now, although getting your foot into the top part of the boot is relatively easy, actually getting your foot into the footbed of the boot is pretty difficult. And that's because for some reason there's like this weird sort of pinch right here in the middle. I guess it's to keep your foot in place when you're wearing the boot, and that makes sense, but you really do have to jam your foot down through whatever is kind of pinching your leg here into the footbed of the shoe. And every time I put the shoe on, I had to jam my foot in, and I felt like I was going to break it. It's a very durable shoe though, so I don't think it would break, but it felt like that. And I'm going to be honest, putting the shoe on was not the most comfortable experience. In fact, it was very uncomfortable. I was in a state of discomfort the entire time. I did not enjoy it. Once the shoe is on though, it's still not the most comfortable thing in the world, but I think that's because I got a size that is way smaller than my actual foot. Now, I know I usually talk about sizing later on in the video, but for this shoe, I feel like it's very important that I tell you guys right up front that this shoe fits incredibly small. You definitely have to go at least a full size up. I got this shoe in a true size 9, and my toes were like bulging out of the front of the shoe. It was crazy. I could not walk in this shoe. It hurt my toes so bad. Definitely buy at least a full size up. I actually had to double check that they had sent me a size 9 and not mix it up with a size 8. I checked the size tag on the inside of the boot. I checked the box itself, and no, this is a size 9, but it fits like a size 8 or maybe like a 7.5 even. Honestly, it was incredibly uncomfortable, but again, I think that was because of sizing and not because of the actual shoe itself. I think that the upper of this is pretty comfortable, except for some other details that I'll tell you guys about in a minute. So to round up my thoughts on sizing, go at least a full size up. If you're a wide footer, maybe go up even more than that. This shoe fits incredibly small, and if you grab your true size, you're gonna regret it. It hurts a lot, and it is not worth it. With that out of the way though, the sock liner of the sneaker is relatively comfortable, again because it's very well padded. It seems to be the same material that you have on the outside of the shoe, which actually feels pretty good to the touch, so I'm not mad about that. The insole of the sneaker is pretty much your standard YEEZY Ortholite insole. It comes in a tan color with the Adidas and YEEZY branding printed onto the heel. And honestly, if the sizing of this shoe had been fixed, I think it would have been a much more comfortable experience for me. In fact, inside the shoe, right about where your ankle bones hit, there's actually these really generous ankle pillow things going on that feel really great against your ankles. But again, I couldn't really appreciate them because of the whole toe crushing thing. Actually, while we're talking about comfort, I should say that the overall stance of this shoe is weird, to say the least. So as you can see, this shoe sort of leans forward, very similar to a ski boot, and it kind of makes you need to sort of bend your knees at all times. I mean, you can stand up straight in this shoe, but actually walking in this thing is pretty weird because your ankles don't have a great range of movement, so it's really kind of hard to take steps in it. I know that sounds ridiculous, and it kind of is, but it's something that you do sort of get used to the longer that you wear it, but it is weird that a pair of $340 shoes make it kind of difficult to walk. Aesthetically though, I don't mind the stance of the shoe. I actually think it makes the shoe look more interesting overall, and it probably will look better than if it was just standing up straight. It kind of looks like an UGG if you do that, but I don't know, it's a weird stance for a shoe, and it really makes walking sort of a chore. Also, on sort of a side note, you really do need a very baggy pair of pants to wear with this shoe. In these on-foot shots, I wore literally my baggiest pair of pants, and even then it made it look like I was wearing skinny jeans. So what's frustrating about this shoe is that you probably have to buy new pants to wear this shoe, so add that to the cost of $340, probably around $60 if you buy a pair from Target. So, you know, there you go, that's $400 right off the bat just to wear these shoes. In fact, I think you need to wear pants like this. This is actually the bottom half of Justin Bieber. This photo was taken by TMZ. He is wearing this exact shoe and the most baggy pair of pants I've ever seen. And that seems to be literally the only way you can wear this shoe. It's ridiculous, but that's what we've come to. Continuing down on the shoe, you get to this very interesting sort of foam midsole that kind of creates this skeleton over the bottom half of the upper. Now what's interesting about this sort of foam skeleton that you've got going on, other than the fact that it looks like this, is that it also seems to be very heavily inspired by the YEEZY foam runner. In fact, it just looks like the back half of the foam runner just sort of magnified onto this boot, which gives it a very sort of interesting alien-like look. Now, I do have to say that this foam skeleton did add a lot of structure to the bottom half of my shoe and definitely kept my foot on the footbed very securely, which I appreciated, but I think my foot also just stayed in place because the shoe was like a whole size too small. But I do have to admit that this sort of structure right here does do a good job of kind of containing your foot. And again, aesthetically, I actually don't mind it. I think it's a really interesting look. I really like this sort of like alien, sort of organic direction that Kanye is taking his brand. It's different, it's interesting, and it's out there. Now apparently this material is different than a pair of foam runners. Even though it looks a lot like the foam runners EVA, it's actually a PU and feels significantly stiffer. As you move down on the shoe, you get to this rubber outsole that has this very aggressive traction pattern, which is obviously good for winter. And what's interesting is that, like a lot of other pairs of Yeezys, there are actually these cutouts through to the midsole cushion. And apparently this foam cushion isn't Boost, although it does feel pretty soft. It's something called CMEVE. I have no idea what that is, but that's apparently what the cushion is. It feels fine underfoot. It's nothing incredible, but it feels fine. Again, I think this would be a relatively comfortable shoe if it wasn't for the fact that I had to lean forward every time I wore it and cut off all my toes to actually get it on my foot. So now that I've given you all sort of an overview of the YEEZY Insulated Boot and honestly bashed this shoe pretty hard, I do want to tell you guys the things I like about this sneaker. But unfortunately, those things are intangibles and not things that you can actually wear or spend $340 on. So what I like about the YEEZY Insulated Boot is that this shoe is absolutely insane. There is nothing like this anywhere on the market, anywhere. This shoe is completely different than anything else we've ever seen before as far as consumer footwear, and it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. We live in a world right now where most footwear is heritage footwear. The footwear that sells are shoes and models that came out decades ago. I'm talking Jordan brand, I'm talking Adidas, I'm talking New Balance, I'm talking Puma. A lot of these shoes have been out for decades and they still sell very well to this day. I know I sound like kind of a hypocrite right now because the Jordan 1 is my favorite silhouette of all time, and I love everything that New Balance is doing by reviving these silhouettes, but at the same time there needs to be a counterbalance to that, and I think Yeezy is the counterbalance. I think shoes like the foam runners and the insulated boots are so ridiculous that it provides sort of the complete opposite end of the spectrum for people who don't want to wear shoes that have been out for years. And I also think it was necessary for the person who designed these shoes to be one of the most influential footwear designers out there. If Kanye West had not been the one to release this, and this had been a pair of Pumas, for example, no one would have bought this. So I really love the fact that someone is actually brave enough, we'll call it, to release shoes that look like this. Yes, a shoe that looks insane and ridiculous and very ugly to some people. I actually don't mind the way that it looks, but these are the kind of designs that are gonna push footwear fashion forward. This is the kind of shoe that might not be remembered in 10 years from now, but it might have inspired a young designer who's creating some future kind of footwear, or might have inspired someone to try something different. And that's what I love about this shoe. It's not a shoe I'd ever wear, and it's not a shoe that I'd ever buy again, but it's something that I really appreciate. So with that being said, it's time to give the YEEZY Insulated Boot an arbitrary Seth score. And my score for today is heavily defined on sort of what we talked about, and my score is I can't. I was gonna try to refilm that, but I can't. Numbers wise, that would be like a 4 or a 5. Conceptually a 6, but 4 or 5 realistically. But now I would love to know your thoughts on the YEEZY Insulated Boot and the future of footwear. So make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.